We want to call to order the Strategic Planning Committee meeting of Monday, January 5th, 2015. The invocation will be led by Mr. Ken Dawson, our CEO, and followed by the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, as we come tonight, we thank you for your protection and your blessing that you bestowed upon us during this holiday season. We pray for those, oh God, that lost loved ones and had issues, oh God, or tragedies, and we pray that you bless them and minister unto them during this new year. As we move into 2015, we ask for your wisdom and guidance as we do the people business. We thank you for a wonderful 2014, and we thank you, oh God, in advance that you will bless us in 2015. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone's here except for Councilman Lambert, Dempsey Lambert. Public comment period. Anyone wishing to comment on any agenda item, please come up and get an agenda card and fill out, and we will call you at the appropriate time. Number 4, update on adjudicated property. For those of you that are not familiar with this, we have a number of adjudicated properties within this parish that are therefore not sellable, not within commerce and everything, and we have been making a concerted effort for about 3 years to rectify this situation and get a process that these adjudicated properties can be put back into commerce. And recently this summer, the assessor's office and Justin Chamberlain has been working very hard on getting that done, and they've reached that point. So Ms. Lindsay Manda, who is our legal counsel, Lindsay, can you tell us where we stand right here, and we want to see what we need to do to move forward, get a report from everyone?
From my perspective, we had the agreement executed and recorded several months ago, I believe during the summer months, and I understand today that Justin Champlin is here with an update. They've been working on cleaning up the list for some time, and I think they're here to present that tonight. So.
Okay, great. Justin, you want to give us a rundown on where you got?
This is actually something that when we took office, I grabbed a hold of the list somewhere along the way and realized that's something we needed to do. And we started this initial research, going through, because when I saw it, a lot of them go back over 100 years, some of these adjudications. And some are just true duels, from that standpoint. And, so we've actually canceled 3 this year from property owners canceled. They purchased the property. They actually acquired the full acreage that was included in that adjudication. So we're able to go through the state land office and cancel those. The one dated back to 1905, that we canceled, and it was actually the U.S. patent. When they got the property, it's where the first year they acquired it, it was adjudicated then. And so that was one that's off the roll for sure. But we refined our search, went to 1992 to 2008 because we knew that was when the state land office had transferred basically over to the parish full rights to these properties. So we don't have to deal with the state land office for anything before 1992. If you do anything from 74 to 92, to 91, it's going to have to require some state land office approval to sell any of those properties. And we're working on that list now and refining that research to be used for the parish for adjudicated purposes. But this is something I'm in favor of.
Justin, before we go any further, what would have to be done during that time period?
Just to get any that have to be sold would have to have approval from the state land office to sell it. So it's just an extra step in the process.
Okay.
And so you'd have to present information to them in order to go through that process.
So you're still working on that list, and then we get that list, then we go to the state land office and get permission to follow through?
Basically, you put it up, but, if somebody were to want to purchase it, you'd have to ask their permission too, in addition to, just having the parish go through the normal process.
Okay. Thank you, and I'm
That's a
sorry
little
to
extra
interrupt.
wrinkle into it. It's a little bit harder, to go through, but that's just, the state land office is very willing to work with any parish that wants to do this. I think it's a positive for our parish to do it. It's something that honestly, it's, never been done and never been touched, and it's time to address it in the right way. And, I've dealt with these before, when I was a title attorney and I represented people buying properties through the adjudicated property in East Baton Rouge Parish. And it's a tedious process. You got to go through the notice and all the requirements. I know you are interested in looking at a company that may do that. From my standpoint, knowing the complexities of the procedures, I'm in favor of a company, that if you would have somebody to take on that role and responsibility to go through the steps to take advantage of it, that way they can go through the proper process, not have somebody, the liability from the parish at that point, but have it go through this, the proper procedures and actually have it professionally done to sell in that situation. So I know there's some minor hiccups that's going to pop up and some small issues that always come up with these type of properties, but it is something that would be beneficial for the parish to actually, start cleaning up the adjudicator role.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions anyone would like to give Justin?
Justin, on some of these that have canceled adjudication, what does that mean?
We're already canceling them. Like some of them are actually the road beds.
Right. Okay, so
Or we may have already, have an existing dual assessment there, so we can cancel those on their face.
And most of these are like .14 acre, .29 acres, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't,
Well, some, like,
I got 2.34 acres.
some of them are so, depending on what it is, I mean, like this homeowner association subdivision signs.
Right.
I mean, it's the common area for the front entrance of a subdivision. I mean,
Yep,
there's almost no economic value in that property,
right, that's what I'm saying, I don't know.
and there's no buyer for it.
Right.
That's the other thing. So those are situations where we feel like there's, we can work with. But a lot of these, you have a dual assessment, and if it's a dual assessment, we can cancel those because they're already, somebody's already paying the taxes on the property.
Right, and they got one here, on the houses on the lot. Cypress Gold. Page 15. Does that mean the lot not legal, or?
Oh, that's just a house on a lot. It's just, that's a shorthand. So this is actually a true subdivision house. I mean, this would be a house in a subdivision. If I pulled it up, it could be a $190,000, $200,000 house or something, or
That's been adjudicated,
that's been adjudicated.
or I believe.
Well,
All right, so you're gonna go back and clean this list?
this list is
clean list?
92 to 2008. This is a final version.
Okay.
This is, you can use this today, take it,
Okay.
and y'all, have a company, use this to start the process. Our office has already been available for any questions or if they have any issues that may come up. But if we have cancel adjudication on there, that's the indication that, this property is not even, to say it shouldn't have been on the tax roll, should have already been removed a long time ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
And that's.
So we can't count those.
Yeah, I think on this list alone, there was like 6 roads that are public roads,
Yeah,
that were just adjudicated a long time ago.
Okay.
And they go back, there were public roads that were pulled in because we had requested I think the late 80s, early 90s, parish adoption of a large amount of roads, and all 6 of those were on that list. So it'd been that way for
wow.
a long time. So obviously they stopped paying because they got pulled in.
Yeah.
So any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Justin. I just want to try to recall last time we visited this topic, it seemed like we were vacillating on whether or not to hire the company to go through the actual process, but one of the stumbling blocks, I believe, back then, if I can recall this accurately, was what you were just talking about with the president, which is a clean list, and like who would do that, who would pay for it. So if we have a clean
We're
list.
giving you the list.
Right. So now we're back to the decision on whether or not, Mr. Chairman, we want to work through this now. It sounds too like If you and I didn't count them all, but there's 5 or 6 on a page, 21 pages, around 100 properties. You
Yeah.
take these ones off that President Martinez was talking about, that
Yeah,
canceled
there's-
and so forth, it's probably a pretty small number.
Yeah, I don't remember the actual number where I'd presented that in that email a while back, but I don't have that in front of me exactly, precisely what number. But I mean, of the list, I'd listed out the number that we knew were canceling. And when we have to go through a certain process in order to have them canceled too, so we've slowly started that, but it takes time to go through that procedure for our office.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it also looks like most of this property does not have a development on it. A few of them have houses, or I see mobile homes and a few things like that, but,
No telling what you're going to find.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So Kent, what's our next step,
Well,
in your opinion?
Justin, I guess, what we'll do, we'll talk to Mr. Gilmore and them from the company that has been doing this in other parishes and see what we need to do to move forward. Certainly we'll have to get council approval and put out probably for RFQs and a proposal and move forward from there. But this is being done in other parishes, and it's working successfully, and, as you said, with a private group that does that all the time, it takes away that, those problems with getting used to that. So I'd like to have them come up and
That's great.
give a little short presentation and tell us exactly what you do.
Good evening. My name is Dave Gilmore. I'm president of Gilmore Auction and Realty. We're actually Sperry Van Ness Gilmore Auction and Realty. And how many copies do we have? I can go ahead and give those out. We gave a little short presentation last year. Actually, it was 14 months ago. And this is most of it is pretty current. It basically shows that what we're giving out here is a little PowerPoint presentation. We've sold over 1,500 properties for a little over $14 million for Jefferson Parish, the City of Kenner, St. Charles Parish, St. Tammany Parish. We're under contract with St. Bernard, and we're meeting with them in the morning to talk about the same issues that you guys have. It'll give you some of our experiences, how many properties, some of the costs, what are the total sales for each one. A lot of these are in Jefferson Parish. We live in Jefferson Parish, and Jefferson is I think the most populous parish in the state, and obviously going to have the most adjudicated properties. We started with them in 2003, and they had 6,000 adjudicated properties. You guys are doing really well with that, around 100 or so, or actually less. And my partner Francis Bro has been speaking with Justin in regards to your list, and I've spoken with Lindsay over the last couple of years or so to figure out and make sure that we were able to whittle that list down and not necessarily waste our efforts or your efforts on properties that we couldn't sell. So there are some issues. One of the things that has come up here in Ascension that we have not run into in other parishes where partial interests of properties have been adjudicated. We're going to have to figure out how to do that. In selling the 1,500 properties we've done, they've always been 100% interest. So we're going to have to figure out how, that's about, maybe 25% of the list. And we're working with Justin to try to figure out how we should handle that. As you know, and you've talked about our, this process will put all of your properties, means you've got, let's say, 100 or so, back into commerce in one event. We can have it done in probably 90, 120 days at the outside from start to finish, more like 90 if everything goes according to plan. We will be probably one of your best tax collectors. Many of the properties will be redeemed, or at least that is our experience in other parishes, when people realize that, they're going to lose their property for taxes. They do, in many cases, come up and redeem that and pay those taxes and delinquencies. It will obviously restore neighborhoods by eliminating blight, if that's an issue here, which I think all of South Louisiana has blight issues that they'd like to take care of, and so that will lend itself to that. And while there are costs to the parish, you're able to lien those properties so that if they're either redeemed or sold, you're able to recover the costs of our services and the title issues that go along with that. You've already gone through and done a cooperative endeavor agreement. That's basically what we talked about. Lindsay took care of that over the last year or so, and so that's a good thing. You guys are basically ready to go. You've got a sort of a pre-screened list that's awfully close to being ready. We would have to get with you guys and decide on tax sale notifications, green cards, and that type of thing, and hopefully we'd be able to come up with a list of, let's say, 60 to 100 that were not duplicate tax bills and made sense to move forward with an event. We just did 165 for St. Bernard Parish, which was really a road home auction, but the point is doing 100 or less is an easy day for us in one event for a one-day situation. Let's see. Yeah, I don't want to go through all of everything that we do or the attorneys do, but basically, the statutes in Louisiana say that your responsibility or the parish's responsibility is to abstract and notify everybody in the chain of title about what we're doing. So that would be a cost to the parish. We handle everything through subcontracting with attorneys and other subcontractors that we use. And we're ready to move on that. We handle all of the photographing of the property, signage, website information, marketing, newspaper, direct mail, email, et cetera. And we handle all of the auction day sale details. We may ask you guys to help us with a venue. In some cases, in Jefferson Parish, their council chamber holds about 250 people. And we pack that place pretty good with standing room only when we do theirs. We may, maybe an auditorium or something like that, make the venue an easy place everybody knows how to get to, and that could work out relatively well. The costs are a bit, not complicated, but we are abstracting notification, title costs, title insurance costs. Those have risen over the last, since we've started doing adjudicated properties in '03, they've risen substantially on a per property basis. And so what we're doing now is we're trying to, push many of the costs onto the buyer because we're running into parishes that just don't have the budget to be able to write a check for whatever the cost is times 100. It can get pretty expensive, even though you do get it back later on through the sale of the property or through the redemption. So we're trying to, suffice it to say, the parish would be responsible for the notification and the abstracting. And that is a cost of $675 per property. And again, we can lien the properties to get, or you can lien the properties to get those dollars back or those funds back for your future use. You may not need it, or you may. Several of our clients establish a budgetary fund. Let's say they pick a number and they fund in their budget, and they use that for those upfront costs and replenish them after every auction, so that you only have to budget once and then it just keeps on going. In your case, you probably don't need it but one time, because I believe we can probably sell you out of business in one event and it's over. They're all gone until more property season. And to be honest with you, I don't know how many properties you guys sell at tax sale every year to have an idea of how many become adjudicated. So if it's taking you guys this long to get to 100, 116 properties, it's going to take a pretty long time to replenish that 100 group. So you would probably only need that expenditure one time, in our opinion. Question?
I was interested about the cost of the parish. You got this, okay, go ahead, Tommy, because I think we might have the same question.
So what I'm figuring is you're saying $67,500 for 100. Be the abstract cost.
Yes, sir. Abstract and notification.
$675.
That's by statute. That's not me here. I'm not here to sell this to you.
I'm just trying
I get it.
to get a handle on this, okay? Now,
That's correct.
And the clear titles, get a title, where does that money come from? Parish put that up too?
Well, it depends. If, I'll give you some examples. Jefferson Parish provides insurable title for the buyer, and it costs more. It ends up costing roughly $1,200 a property. That would include that $675, though. Okay? Now, that's what they do. St. Tammany does not. We push the majority of the costs on to the buyer. So it's a difference in what you guys want to do. Doesn't really, it's a means to an end for us. We're not making any money on it. I'm not in the title business. I'm in the sales business. We want to sell the real estate and close it for you. So, yes.
Okay. And Lindley, in the intergovernmental agreements, are we, are the other people responsible and are going to pay part of this, or we pay the whole?
We didn't address that. We just addressed the parish's ability to sell the property.
And then, Mr. Gilmore, we would recoup our monies as you sell the property.
That's correct.
And that would be whatever agreement we would come to. We
That's
could
correct. Yes, sir.
recoup it, or we could say recoup it plus $5,000 or whatever.
Well, I'm not sure how you add on, but okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know what percentage, let's just say you make the money that's over and above the expenses, correct?
No, we make a percentage of the gross, of
Okay.
the actual sale, the actual closing, just like a real estate broker does, and we're also real estate brokers.
Okay, and
We
where
make
does the rest of the money go?
The rest of the money goes to you guys.
Okay.
It's your property.
I understand, but.
Well, I'll take it home, but
But,
I didn't think that's what you had in mind.
well, I mean, and what I'm trying to get at is, let's just say we put up $70,000.
Mm-hmm.
Just a hypothetical on 100 properties. What is the return on that to the government entity?
I have no idea.
And
There's no
an
way of
average.
knowing.
Okay,
As you can see on the second or third page, actually the third page, you can see the total sales of some of our auctions. And
Right.
that is based on the property, whether it's got a house on it, whether it's got a shopping center on it, whether it's vacant land. There's no way for me to project, even looking at your list, what the numbers will be.
and-
I can tell you, we averaged $5,000 or $5,500 per property in St. Bernard a few months ago.
right.
But that's not to say that's going to happen here. It could be, you could average a lot more here or a lot less here. I have no idea.
Okay.
It's going to be hard to project that and figure out what the return is, but I can tell you that everything over and above our fee, you guys get back, whatever that may be. And it will be a bonus, and the fact that you're getting the property back into commerce is really, I think, the goal.
And your experience in the past, has it been a zeroing out of the money? Or
No,
the
sir.
parish has
No,
gotten
sir.
back more money or less, or?
No, usually there's a surplus that the parish, it goes into depending upon how the parish handles it.
Yeah.
Jefferson goes into the general fund. So, yes, there's always been a surplus in every case that we've had an auction.
Okay.
There's always money left over.
That's what.
No
same thing the
guarantee.
parishes are telling me. I'm
It's
just-
based on the property,
Right,
and we can't tell you what that's going to be at this point.
okay. Mr. Johnson?
So out of the descriptions that you've heard from, and y'all work with Justin from what you were saying earlier, the type of property that we have, what has been your experience in dealing with those type of properties that, as far as sales, I mean, do we have, I mean, 'cause one of the concerns I've got, if we're putting up this money on a per property basis, what's the success rate on selling that type of property? If you got a partial property with multiple titles or just, you know, a tenth of an acre, you know, are you selling those type of properties?
Historically, we've sold 100%. Now, I can't tell you that 100%
Right, I mean, I'm
equates
not-
to $1 million.
No, but I mean, if we break even with it, to me, it's a win in the sense that we get it back into commerce. But my concern is that from some of the property descriptions, I'm not sure how much those properties are going to sell.
And that's a good
I
point.
can answer that.
That's a very legitimate point. Normally, we start our, most of the sales don't sell for less than $1,000, generally. Every so often, we have to go back down to 500 to get an opening bid, just as a rule. We normally sell them regardless of price, and we tell everybody, where you're going to start, $1,000. And that's how we kind of handle it, and it goes up from the competition from there. So it's really, I would tell you that if you're looking to get $70,000 back, I would tell you that's easy. That's not a problem. But if you're looking to get you 70,000 back and $1 million on top of that, don't hire us.
Yeah, no,
It's a terrible idea.
Well, I mean, and the parish president was talking to Justin a while ago. I mean, there's a house in a subdivision, okay, but not all of these are like that. I mean, you may have a tenth of an
That's
acre
correct.
that's
No, we understand.
landlocked or something like that.
I get it.
You know, what
And the
are
fact that-
chances of selling those type of properties to make sure that we get our, at least, like I said, at least break even.
Kenny, I've been to two of the auctions.
That's right, you've been to
as,
some of our auctions.
As an observer and to check out things. And what ends up happening is these small lots, a lot of times, are adjacent to somebody's property. And so the property owner next door very much wishes to have that property. So 1/10 of an acre, they just expand their lots.
Right.
If for no other reason than to keep someone else from getting it. And same thing with landlocked properties, same thing with blighted properties. They want to take the house down that's falling apart, or for various other reasons. But I found that a lot of them were neighbors that bought the smaller properties, and then the larger properties were investors that were looking to buy it and put some capital in and put it back into commerce. So that's what. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Gilmore, I think Councilman Scheck-Snyder has hit the nail on the head here. What we'd be interested in, at least I would for sure, on this committee, because we only recommend, as you know, to the full council, and they're going to have to make a decision, is what our return on investment would be. Now, when I look at page 3 in what you handed out, just doing the simple math of the amount of money from an auction sale, either from the city of Kenner, or I think Jefferson Parish or St. Charles Parish, these, I think, 8 auctions you have listed there, the total auction sales on one side versus the title clearing costs and the abstract costs on the other, I see anywhere from an 8 to a 10 ROI. Is that accurate? Return on investment?
I think so.
Okay.
However,
So that's helpful, but what I don't see in here is, what does your company's name, Sperry Van Ness, what kind of bite do you take out of the apple?
we make 15%.
So is it correct to think that we can look at clearing costs on title, abstract cost?
Well, that's up to
And then
you.
take 15 of the sales costs on top of that, and then kind of get a handle for what we might be able to make? I realize we're not, as you said, Jefferson Parish, we're not the city of Kenner.
Exactly.
Maybe higher, maybe lower, but I certainly wouldn't want to recommend to the full council an academic exercise, something that would have at least some real meat to it. And we
I
certainly-
understand.
I know
I
President
understand.
Martinez would like to see this money come to general fund. I see he's nodding his head, so.
Well, here's the issue that we have. In order for us to give you an accurate or even a basic range of what we think the property will sell for, we've got to go find everyone, which is going to be difficult to begin with, which we'll have to do. Then we'll have to look at the property, do some comparables, and figure out what we think it's worth. That's going to take time and a lot of effort. And I'm not sure whether, without a contract, whether we're willing to go that far. We know that these properties, they didn't become adjudicated because they were the Empire State Building. We know that they're the bottom of the barrel. They've always been that way. Why didn't they sell at a tax sale? Nobody wanted them, or they were over encumbered beyond value. However, every so often you get a couple of gems. Usually when you get a gem, it gets redeemed before we ever get to the sale. So normally, we're talking about the lower 10% in the value range. As far as maybe we could come up with some average prices that we've done in the past in a location that possibly isn't Jefferson Parish, that would give us an idea of worst-case scenario and best-case scenario, but it will purely be a guess.
Okay, and just to be sure of the math again, your 15% would come out of the auction sales, not after the title
Is correct.
clearing and the abstract cost.
Yes, sir, just the sales price. That's all we make. And look, if we didn't think we could make money at it, we don't want the job. I mean, we're
I was about to say that, but you did.
We're a for-profit business. Don't misunderstand me. We're not going to get rich in Ascension Parish. Believe me, I understand that. What we're looking to do is to help you guys get the properties back into commerce, make a few bucks along the way, and do this in lots of parishes, which we're doing already. And we just want to add and continue to help. This is a need throughout Louisiana that we're trying to fill. And we hope we can count you guys in, in that number.
And how long, sir, did you say your company has been doing this?
We've been doing real estate auctions since 1983. We've been doing adjudicated auctions specifically since 2003. So it's 10 years and 15.
Okay, so you're 10, 11 years on adjudicated, and how many parish clients or cities do you have?
St. Tammany, Jefferson, Kenner, St. Charles, Lincoln, St. Bernard, 6 parishes.
Okay. And this is not necessarily for you, but I guess, Mr. Chairman or Mr. President, regardless of what we do after shop companies and so forth, all we can really do is make a recommendation that we would want to go forward to pursue.
You'd put up for proposals.
Right.
There are, just so you'll know,
Like RFQs.
there are
and
very
RFPs.
few companies that do what we do in this realm.
Right. But I think what the chairman is saying, that, we'd have to have an RFP and all that. So in
I
case
understand.
somebody said 13% or 12% is their fee, and
I get it.
and they have a
I
great
just-
track record as well. Or
I understand.
but I appreciate you being here 14 months ago. I remember
Thank
and
you.
being here again.
Thank you, and we appreciate you inviting us. I just want to caution you when you do the RFP. We'd be happy to work on a professional services contract starting tomorrow. However, if you need to do an RFP, I want to make sure you understand that you get qualified applicants that have sold adjudicated properties. You will find that the universe is about that big. Okay? I promise you people will do it for less. But please take that with a grain of salt. Okay? Any other questions?
I'm good.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just looking through this list right here, taking the 15% off of the auction sales and everything, and having the title clearing and the abstract costs on each of these 8 that was examples, it still leaves a pretty good bit of money left over. So I like to go through with what history tells us, and so in the past, since from 2005 to 2010, that was our last one, it has been a very productive thing for each of the governmental entities that participated. So, thank you from there. Yeah, I would like to have a motion to move this to acceptance of this. I'm trying to think of what to call it, this action item, and to allow for the parish president to negotiate with the company or to put out for whatever is legally required to hire a company to pursue this matter.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
Lindsay, if you can figure out what.
Well, and
The only,
We'll
the
get
only,
requests
the only
for proposals.
question I got, sir, is If it's 50,000 or less, we wouldn't have to go through.
Well,
But it's gonna be probably more according to what I'm seeing here. So our rules state, we understand, just hire you, but that's not what we,
Now, when you say 50,000 or less, are we talking about the title fees, or are we talking about commission fees?
commission.
Okay, because,
It's still just 15%.
wouldn't the commission fees be generated after the sales?
that's
Would
correct.
that be, so that wouldn't be something that we would pay them?
It's,
That would be
I'm,
part of
I'm not
that?
here to ask you to pay me $65,000
I understand.
to do the job. I'm asking you to pay me a commission when we do the job, if you will. So I guess that's
Well-
up to you
That
guys.
kind of puts
What-
us in a,
And that's why I would like to hand it over to administration to decide what's the proper way between Ms. Manda and the administration, and decide which is the proper way to move forward to hire a company
what do you think, Ms. Mann?
for this.
I think we'll probably have to go through the RFP process. I think with your subs, do we pay you directly and then you pay out your subs? Is that how it works?
Generally.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be that way. We're
And
pretty
we
easy.
might could work something out otherwise, but we'll sit down and kind of estimate. I'm looking at, what is it, like your total sale cost, 1.9, 1.5 million, so 15% is going to be well over that $50,000 mark. And not to say that we'll be close to that, but maybe we can sit down and figure out about what we're thinking and put out a quick request
We
for
can probably call
proposal.
the other parishes and see how they handle it. But this allows us to move forward to the council for approval of this process, and allows administration to negotiate to get someone on board.
Yeah, if the
That's what we look-
council approves it, we'll look at it and see which way is best. We
And-
can go out for RFQ if we
Yeah.
have to.
The discussion?
Primary.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Yeah, I realize we have a motion, a second on the table, but just a little discussion further. Did I hear you say, Mr. Gilmore, I was looking, I can't find it in your literature, that your record is 100% of properties on a clean list turned over to you by an entity of being a
Yes.
city or parish,
Yes.
winds up in an actual
We sell them
auction
all.
sale?
100%.
Okay. Just wanted that into the record.
There are people, and Mr. Scheck-Snyder's been at our auctions, there are people who buy anything at a price. 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Cazzo, and I think a second by Mr. Satterley, to move this to the council for administration to go forward with this, with the company. Is there any further discussion? Any objection? If not, this motion is passed, and it brings us to, thank you, Mr. Gilmore, we
Thank you, sir.
appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Justin and everyone else, Lindsay, thanks for, in fact, I think this was first looked at about 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, 2002, we've been working on it, so. I have one more question before you go, because someone just had asked me. The 1972 to 1994 properties that has to go through the land office,
I don't think we have an issue with it.
is that something that we can work on while we're working on these others, that you can
Sure,
lend?
sure. And I didn't hear anybody say how many were in that potential list.
Justin, okay. I can well, at some point in time, y'all can
You
get
could
together
do,
on
you
that.
could do one big event, or you could do several events.
We would like to proceed with one event,
Absolutely.
with the ones that we have cleared, and that way we can go through the process.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we have motion to adjourn.
You
Motion
got one
by,
other thing on there. You got
got the
the
regionalized?
traffic study.
oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Big thing here. Number 5, regionalized traffic studies for multiple developments. This is something that has brought to my attention recently, actually by a developer that, as we know, in subdivisions and major developments and everything, in order to do a subdivision in his parish, it is required that they do a traffic study. And they spend monies on the traffic studies, and inevitably, in many cases, the traffic study says that no improvements are needed with that size development. And so therefore, we get no improvements. And the developer has to pay X amount of money, and the parish reaps no benefit. And we were looking, and they made a suggestion. They had recently a developer that was doing multiple developments, proposing to do multiple developments in an area, had proposed to take their monies that they would pay for the traffic study and add more money and simply get approval from the parish to give that money to the parish to do an actual project within that area for turning lanes or intersection improvements that would actually improve that, which to me made a lot of sense, that they were actually putting money on to something that would improve it. However, our ordinances says as of now that everyone that does a subdivision must do a traffic study, and they have to spend the money for that. So there was no room for negotiations or to have a proposal that could be agreed upon, that, they could spend more money, agreed upon by the entities in the parish or anything like that, some type of way to work it out. It just seemed to me like it made a lot of sense. We met with the sheriff's office to see about traffic situations and things, and they thought that made a lot of sense also, that we would get some results. I talked to President Martinez about it. He was for anything that we could see some results for. And so approached Ricky, who's a planning director, and he said something like this needed to go through engineering, Mr. Bob Horner. So I spoke it through him, and he said that he was looking into it, and we were putting it on the agenda now, and we're at that point now. Mr. Bob, have you come up with something that would make it conducive to that possibility, or?
Mr. Chairman, what we've done thus far in the engineering since we had last spoken was to look at the different possibilities and how far out we're looking at as far as the regionalizations go. There's a number of complexities that start to get involved, including whether it's a DOTD road or whether the timing is right in the particular circumstance that you're talking about. You've got a developer that has multiple projects, and it kind of falls into the ideal scenario. So right now, we're looking at how to phase all of those things and whether or not how to word that in an ordinance format for you so we could give you a little better feedback.
Okay. Ms. Gazzo?
Let me understand, this would be, this money for these projects would be in lieu of a traffic study? Or
Yes.
after a regional traffic study that
No.
tells us what the impact is regionally, and then they would do whatever
It would
is
be,
needed to be done?
it would be an agreement with administration that in lieu of the traffic study, they would actually participate in a project.
So how would we know that this project's actually going to make a difference? I mean, the project they choose to do. Who would make the decision?
Well, I mean, it would be an agreement with the parish. Like
So
if
our-
Seabro Road, if they would do, let's say, 3 developments in that area, and they would come up and they say, look, we would get with the parish and we would work through for improvements on Seabro Road. We know that would be beneficial to the parish. Yet you may have 3 different entities that were doing developments there when they do their traffic study and end up saying each one of them individually is not going to be an impact enough to do a turning lane or do a light or do something else, which has historically been our whole problem. We go to these people that fill up the council chambers and they're doing a development with 80 or 100 houses, and we know it's going to increase in traffic, and yet when they do their traffic study and come back from DOTT, and it says that there's no measurable increase and so therefore they're not required to make any major improvements, so.
And I fully agree with you. We were having that discussion earlier today. But I want to be sure that whatever project they undertake to do, this gift that they choose to make, that it is going to be effective. And so is there going to be any study that's, or is it needed in engineering's opinion? Is there going to be any study done to make sure that what they're doing is something that brings real help? Or is it going to be a token, I'll put you in, I'll lengthen this turning lane, and then we're off the hook here?
No, that's part of the complexities that I mentioned earlier, is that one of the things is build out, so that you have 3 projects going, but one might not start construction for 4 or 5 years, but the first one begins tomorrow, and there's a real need. But that still, like you mentioned, doesn't preclude the fact that you do need a traffic impact study of some sort, whether funded by the parish through a cooperative agreement with the developers, or as is currently being done now by the developer, to know what's required and what's needed.
It's interesting.
And one of the biggest things when you do these things is to acquire the property acquisition to do some project. If you do it, whether it be a turning lane or anything, it's one of the first things that come up. And Parish doesn't usually, they can do the project, but going through the process of acquiring the property or not having that money to acquire the property, even if a developer goes through and acquires the property needed in an area to do a turning lane or expand the intersection, and that's done, then that is a benefit down the line when we're ready to do an intersection improvement, where the parish doesn't have to do that. It can be whatever would be beneficial administratively wise for the parish. Yes.
Curious about your thoughts.
So, a couple questions. Well, I agree in theory that I would like to start seeing some projects get done. I'm kind of along the lines with Terry in making sure that there's some benefit to what we do. So, in that regard, is there a difference in the type of studies required by the different subdivision developers? In other words, if I got a subdivision going in with 50 homes versus a subdivision going in with 300 homes, is there a difference in the type of study that they're going to have to do, that they're required to do?
The way our ordinances or guidelines, it's not one of our ordinances, one of our guidelines right now are written, is if you fall below a certain threshold, you're not required to go to a level 2 impact, and then you go to a level 2 impact at a certain point, and it's all based on how many trips are generated by that one particular development. Now, that doesn't stop someone from building 25 lots here, then 25 lots here, then 25 lots here, then 25 lots here, and 25 lots here, to the point where you can't, without going through another step, require them to do additional studies.
But if I have, for an example, trying to think of a subdivision, would say maybe 100 homes in it versus a Keystone, was there a difference in the type of study that those folks were required to do and the cost of that study? So, example, if I've got another Keystone with several hundred houses in it, are they going to put up the same amount of money as somebody that put up where there was an impact? That was one of the few subdivisions, if I remember correctly, that did have some kind of an impact. So are they going to put up the same amount of money as versus a subdivision that would put up, say, 100 homes? And so you get into the disparities with the dollar amount and the impact. And so from that regard, I have an issue with that, if that's the case. And so another question I have is, are there different types of studies that can be done from what we're doing now? Because I've had a conversation, it's been years ago, about the type of study that we do, and it takes a pretty good-sized subdivision to have any kind of an impact. Whereas if we change the criteria for the type of study that we do, most every subdivision will have some sort of an impact that'll have to be remedied before they can allow it to develop. And so would it not be better to change the criteria for the studies that we're doing that would give us a more accurate picture and have a more benefit and identify the things like what Terry was talking about that would have to be compensated for by the development, as opposed to what we've been doing in the past. Because I agree, there's a lot of subdivisions coming in and there's no impact. When then we start adding these different subdivisions in multiple areas and none of them have any impact, well, all of them together do. And so there's got to be some kind of criteria, some way of capturing all that to where we don't continue to put ourselves in a situation. And I've been an advocate and talking behind the scenes with Ricky and others about what do we have to do to change the criteria for the type of road study that we're doing to make it reflect more of what's happening in the parish, because obviously what we're doing is not correct.
And Benny, thank you for that information, because that is also true. What we end up having, the realism of it is that we have X amount of houses that in itself does not warrant a meaningful improvement, let's say a light or a turning lane or something like that. You may have 80 houses that, and I'll give you an example, Pelican Point, it went a long ways before they even had to put a light up, were required to put a light up. And that's one of our largest developments in the parish. And there were 3 subdivisions right near there that in itself, each of them did not require any basic improvements other than a deceleration lane. And so in that whole area, we really didn't get any improvements. Yet if they would have, if we could have gotten, if that would have been the same developer and he would have wished to, yet they spent money on traffic studies, a good bit of money. So if we could have gotten them to put that money into some type of parish project there, whatever we would like, maybe getting right away, we would have gotten something for it. The people of this parish would have gotten something for it, and it wouldn't have, it would have cost the developer probably the same amount of money or a little bit more, which the way developers have mentioned to me was they don't mind spending a little bit more because they would get a benefit if it would improve the traffic in that area also. So,
I don't disagree with that, and I other than to say that whether it's I don't see where maybe a 10-home subdivision might not have any impact, and I don't know what the numbers would be, but somewhere down the line there is an impact. And each development needs to pay for what that impact is, and whether it goes into some type of a fund or whatever, until you have enough development in that area to where you can come up with to use your example you put out there. Okay, you had Pelican Point developed, and you had the other subdivisions out there. Once those other subdivisions developed out there, you see what the overall impact of that area is, and a percentage, you can't say exactly what kind of project would initially be funded, but there needs to be some type of a percentage of an impact that those developers are paying for that particular area that would go towards whatever improvement when that final subdivision is brought in there to say, add turn lanes, add a red light, widen the road, whatever. At least you would cover a portion of whatever that cost would be by all the developers. And, depending on the largest one, as I guess some kind of percentage, how you work that out, I guess would need to be discussed and hammered out. But you'd have to have some kind of percentage basis on what to do with what
that's
their
exactly
payments are.
That's
I guess.
exactly what was proposed for the impact fees. The idea of impact fees does exactly what you're talking about. And it has been proposed, it has been talked about for a long time. 10 years ago, this parish proposed it. It was voted upon by the council, and it was not enacted. So short of impact fees, which I don't see that push being made right now. This is something that has happened once since I've been councilman, and for as a regional group that said that they would like to participate. They're not talking about spending less money, they want to spend more money, but they would like to have their money spent to actually do something.
I'd like to say, when I saw regionalized traffic studies, I was very excited. But I'm not excited about something that doesn't give us evidence-based improvements. They cannot do this in lieu of a study, cannot, in my opinion. And I will, and to add another thing, we've been rediscussing, revisiting as little as an hour ago, the idea of adding some, or reinvigorating our look into impact fees. So I don't think those are dead. I think that there's work that we can do on that, and I think we can probably come out of those meetings with a proposal for this committee, and then for finance, and then for the council. So I'm not saying we need to wait on this, but I am saying I can't support it if it does not give us an evidence-based improvement. And that would mean we would have to have what I saw here as a regionalized traffic study. They're willing to do that. I'm happy as a lark with it.
And what ends up happening, the cost of doing a regionalized traffic study, which is what they would want to put up to actually do a project. So then you don't get monies toward a project, and that was the whole idea. So,
But we might can do both.
well, then what's going to happen is they're just going to continue to pay individually for the traffic study, and they're going to put up their money for that, and nothing's going to happen. And that's what's happening right now. So we can continue to do what we're doing and spending money for traffic studies and not getting the benefit, or this is one incident I know of that, whether it be a waiver on it or whether it be pending council approval, whether all council members would wish to do it, because I think if you brought something to the council and you told them of a problem and the parish is willing to improve X intersection, I think the council could let you know right away whether that was warranted. Well, we don't need to do a study. We don't need to do a study to find out that 431 and 429 needs improvements or so on.
Well, and I agree with you, Ken, but I'm not an engineer, and certainly I would not feel qualified to determine if a turn lane or a light or a deceleration lane was the most effective and evidence-based need for a development to provide. So I'm back to let's look at impact fees, and let's everybody really consider those, and when that comes to you, let's support it, and in whatever form that might come out. And then I will say that I can't support something that a developer just decides that this is what he's willing to do to help fix the traffic problem in a particular area, and there's no evidence that that might be the fix. Whether he's willing to, whether it's saving him the money and he's spending some money or not. I mean, I've been in the real estate business. You're not in it to spend more money. You're in it to spend less money so that you have more profit. And I'm a firm believer in doing that. I do it myself. But I think it's our responsibility to the citizens of Ascension Parish to ensure that they get what they should get. And I agree with you completely that they are not getting a benefit now. So I'm excited that we're having this discussion. I think we've got a way to move forward.
And I would be content with our engineering department to give us a recommendation of a possibility of that could be accepted for them and made toward the council, and the council approve whether they accept it or not. This would be the first thing that would happen that we could actually see some, something move forward. So that would be a process that we would have engineering, that they could use whatever data that they had in-house, and we wouldn't have to go and waste the money on studies that are currently being done. So, I was very open to any type of way that would be a proposal to do. I did not want to go any further forward with it on a specific proposal until it was discussed and brought out there. But, if there's wishes, we could get with engineering and make a proposal at the next meeting that might be, and definitely have all of our input. We're just trying to look at some kind of way that the money's being spent is actually going to improving. That's all. And we're not trying to get any developer off the hook for anything, believe me. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and I have a lot of empathy for what Councilwoman Casso is saying and Benny Johnson. I just want to throw this in the mix. My district is rapidly expanding. Highway 73 comes to mind, and when you look at subdivisions like Seven Oaks and Longwood and Renaissance Village and Southwood, and the list goes on, and I see one of our planning commissioners out there, Gasper's in the audience, he'll tell you that preliminary plat for another, what was it, Gasper, 197 home sites and hollows of Dutchtown, or may have the thing backwards, maybe Dutchtown hollows, whatever's planned. And then I look and I read in the paper that we have a school being planned by the school board that just bought the property that President Martinez talked about at a nice price on 73, right across from this planned Dutchtown Hollows subdivision. And yet we have a tremendous traffic jam, and in all of these subdivisions, Seven Oaks, Longwoods, over the years, in the last 20 years, every time individually it was concluded that there was no significant impact on traffic. As a former commissioner, I heard similar cases, and I knew it was bull then, and it's bull now. And I'd like to see a lot of changes, including two more I'm going to throw out right now on top of the fact that I support the impact fees. As far as I'm concerned, the sooner is better. I don't think we're letting the cat out of the bag. Ms. Casso just said that she is working to, and I heard this in chambers, reinvigorate the Planning Commission to push that topic to some sort of fruition. It's time to quit just talking about it, but do something. But when I went through Capital Regional Planning Commission training as a planning and zoning commissioner, they talked a lot about discretionary authority that these appointed people have, that this council gives to them when we appoint them. And that is to approve or deny subdivisions, and denial based on if there's inadequate infrastructure, because it could be more than traffic. It could be drainage, it could be schools, it could be whatever have you. That you do have that discretionary authority, and I'm not encouraging you to deny things wholesalely, but to really, really take a look to see if we're developing in, quote, the right area. I'm not anti-growth, but I'm certainly not for growth for the sake of growth. I used to call it when I campaigned, what I prefer to see is infrastructure-guided growth. And I'm telling you right now, it's getting to be crazy on 73. I might also say, if there's been no significant impact with all these subdivisions and the one yet to come and the schools they're going to put on top of it, then why are we widening 73? Duh. We're widening 73. So it's high time. We can't keep letting this go on. Now, whether that's going to be a combination of these regionalized traffic studies with the existing one, and certainly I would support what Ms. Castle said. We definitely don't want to get rid of what we already have. As we often say on this committee, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But I'll go another one, not just discretionary authority. We need to consider the fact that some places we just shouldn't be developing it. And that's a hard decision. And I know it's going to make some developers really upset. And they may even sue, because what I heard, and I know Mr. Derfisi agreed with me, it was there when I was a commissioner, it's there now. If all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed in our land development code, and I've heard discussions in the current commission and ours, then we're sort of compelled to approve the development. In fact, I see that all the time in the recommendations of staff. And it's hard when you serve that. You ask the staff, well, what do you say? And they say, well, we recommend because the I's dotted, the T's across, that you approve this. And so it gets approved, and it's built, and the traffic gets worse, and our solution after the fact is to widen the road. I think we have sometimes the horse in back of that cart and not in front of it pulling. So impact fees, let's do it. I encourage the Planning and Zoning Commission to use that discretionary authority. I might add, when I did go through CRPC training, Capital Regional Planning Commission training, Supreme Court of the United States of America has upheld the rights of planning and zoning commissions all throughout the United States to turn down developments where infrastructure is inadequate. I can see that slide up there in the PowerPoint presentation when I went through training. I don't think we need to forget that. Now, do we need the taxes? Sure. And do we need to have some growth and so forth? Sure. Let's go in the right places. Impact fees, discretionary authority, and I've probably said enough. Thank you for listening.
Any other question or comment? Parish President, you want to comment?
It's going to be tough to do what you want to do with the regionalized traffic studies. I mean, basically, we're dealing with, every road we talk about is state roads. Everything somebody mentioned here is 73, Doc mentioned. 22 is going to be impacted if they have the new development at Riverton. Dempsey Pendarvis is looking at 300 acres behind Panama. All that's going to do is add to the traffic woes that's already you having trying to get out of Loose-Moore Road. So
And each one of them shows that there's no significant events.
exactly. So
Improvements.
I'm kind of like Doc here on this one as far as impact fees. I think that needs to be revisited because basically what you're talking about now is an impact fee. It's the same thing. I mean, you're not changing anything. All you're doing is asking us to do a study to see how much the impact is, so we can charge each development by the lot, basically, on how big that subdivision is. Like we could go in District 4 or 6 or whatever, and we can regionalize and look at the traffic studies and do a traffic study in there and see what the impact would be the greatest, and then come back with a recommendation on how much it would cost. Is that what you?
Well, I mean,
trying to-
basically, this is a voluntary impact fee,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not
somebody's
voluntary.
willing to do that,
Yeah.
And improve the traffic in lieu of, quite frankly, and I'm 100% supporting of impact fees because I think the people that come in ought to,
Right.
ought to pay their fair share. But it hadn't happened, and
No, it's
you know,
not.
we
It's
we
not
voted on
happening.
it 8 years ago,
Well, same
and
thing with.
we haven't had it back. Quite frankly, in election year, I don't see it happening for at least another year, and that's just the way it is, and I would love to see it happen, but in short of that, I'm a person that likes to just see something happen. That's a
Right.
positive, that we're not wasting money, that people are seeing that we're doing something. Even if we know the roads in this parish, we've already had the proposals for setbacks and the sizes of the roads that should be, whether it be 44 or 73. We know eventually 73 is going to be 4-lane. And,
I don't know if you'll ever see that.
but, at some point in time, it will be, at some point in time, it'll be 6-lane, just like Essen Lane. But, if it would mean, acquiring right-of-way or doing, whatever the parish could do, so that it would speed things up for the states, even if these state roads, where it would speed things up where they could do a project. And,
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with sitting down with the state also and let them doing a regionalized plan just for maybe Ascension Parish in dealing with the state and to tell them what we want to see when the development does come on the state road and to see how we would like to address it and to make sure that it's done. It's similar to what happened on Highway 44. When Edenborn came in, they were supposed to connect and do the improvements or pay up to so much on improvements at 44, but in Loose-Moore, but that didn't happen. Okay, they got off the hook on that one, and again, we've had the state look at study Loose-Moore and try to do what they could, but they've not come up with an idea yet that works. They got one, but they would basically want us to pay for it. I think it's to move the offset and go away and meet on the other side, the other road, but they'd have to go around the pipeline. So, there's things that need to be done. But I mean, if the state doesn't do an impact and doesn't make anybody do anything, I mean, most of the developers we're talking about are going to impact all on 44. I mean, you're just going to get worse and worse at Loose-Moore. If they do the development at Riverton, they all come into the interstate. If they do MP Evans property, it's all going to come right through there to you, going to the interstate. And if they do the one that Dempsey's proposing, it's all going to go there too. So instead of waiting 3 minutes per cycle for you to get across on the left turn lane, you're going to take 6, and then if you get another one, it'll be 9, and you may be sitting there for each car for 10 minutes before you can get out. So
it was 12 minutes tonight.
yeah. So anyway, it needs to be looked at. I understand your point about the regionalization, but I think to do that, we need to have some hardcore sit-down meetings with the state to try and see if we could do something maybe unique, that we could do it in conjunction with the state and the parish
for Ascension Parish.
Well,
Because
I
to
met
do
with
some
the
impact
person-
fees and stuff like that.
I met with a person from the state in our area here, in fact, on that particular area. And basically what they said, that if the parish could assist in acquiring the right-of-way, they can move the project up very fast, because their method of acquiring right-of-way takes so long, it puts everything so far behind. So,
I disagree because they got quick take, they can take it. It's us that takes so long.
okay.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I said there was two things, and I didn't get the second one. Discretionary authority is one thing. I want to also say to the Planning Commission, I think it would be wise if y'all would examine or re-examine the fact right now that the developers come and they do these impact and drainage studies and so forth that are required by our code, and they pay for those studies. I've said it back when I was a commissioner, and I'll say it again. As far as I'm concerned, that's the fox guarding the hen house. I'd much rather see a system placed into existence where the developer would come forward, wanted to put a subdivision here or whatever, and they pay a fee to the parish, and the parish hires this firm to do the study, and the study firm reports back to the parish. And that might even help a little bit on discretionary authority, because you may get some back that would say, you know what? It's an overburdened area. And maybe they'd give some of them recommendations that would make it easier. And the commission could go behind their skirts that, we need a turn lane here. We need two entrances and exits, not just one to the subdivisions. I remember one we had where there were 15 lots backing onto a major, it wasn't even a state highway. I think this was actually a parish road, as opposed to turning them houses to where they would back into the subdivision and come out of a set entrance and exit one at a time. And we had to fight the developers because there was nothing in our code, either to affirm or deny, to really get that done. And again, discretionary authority. And number two, Mr. Feasey, I hope you'd bring this back to your committee, would be to go ahead and take a look at, should we be collecting a fee and then let us hire the company as opposed to having these developers do the same? Thank you.
Well, any further discussion? We'll table this and have engineering take a look at it, and if it so warrant, we'll try to get something for the next meeting, suggestions, if we can move forward. Anybody that has any input, please get with Mr. Horner and present him with your input, and we'll see if we can get something positive. Good discussion. Glad we were able to have this discussion.
Motion
With
to
that,
adjourn.
now we're on number 6. This meeting is hereby adjourned.